Hello and welcome to Workers Comp Unwrapped, the podcast that simplifies workers' compensation for physicians. So let's get started. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 3 of Workers Comp Unwrapped with Anique and Angela, who has 15 years of experience in the industry. Today we are talking about retroactive denials and overpayment audits in workers' compensation.
It is great to be here, and I have to say, of all the topics we cover, this is probably the one that gets the most visceral reaction.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. We're not just talking about the usual headache of getting a bill rejected. We're talking about money that's already in your bank account, money you've already, counted and spent.
Exactly. That is the absolute nightmare scenario, right? You've done the work, treated the patient, submitted the bill, you got paid, you've paid your staff with that money, you've probably bought supplies, you've mentally and financially closed the book on that claim. Months later, the rug just gets pulled out. It feels like a total betrayal.
It is the ultimate rug pull. And unfortunately, as we're, looking at the landscape for 2026, this isn't some occasional nuisance anymore. It's becoming a core strategy for carriers. Yes. They're coming back for money more often, more aggressively, and with a lot less warning than we've ever really seen before.
It just feels like the whole game has changed. So I guess our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We need to unpack this. We need to understand why paid claims are suddenly being clawed back.
Right.
And we need to distinguish, and this seems huge, what insurers are trying to do versus what they can actually legally do, and ultimately how you can protect the revenue you've already earned.
Absolutely. Because nothing hurts more than writing a refund check for work you legitimately did. And to get there, we have to start with definitions. We have to be really, really precise.
Okay, let's start there then. When you say retroactive denial, what does that actually mean? How's that different from the normal denials a biller sees every day?
So a normal denial it's perspective. You send a bill, they say no, and you fight it out before any money changes hands. That's, business as usual. A retroactive denial is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an insurer looking at a payment they made, sometimes months, sometimes even years ago, and deciding that payment was, quote, improper.
So they're just saying, oops, our mistake? Give us the money back.
That's the nice way of putting it. The more aggressive version, which is what we're seeing now, is more like, we've reevaluated this and we've decided you shouldn't have been paid.
On what grounds?
Oh, they'll have reasons. They might say the treatment wasn't medically necessary, or it wasn't authorized correctly, or it didn't meet some guideline. But the key part is the timing. It's all happening after the fact.
That word after is doing a lot of work there. It seems incredibly unfair. Like, imagine buying a coffee, drinking it, and a month later the shop calls and says, actually, that latte wasn't authorized. You need to bring the money back.
It's a great analogy. But now imagine that coffee shop is using a supercomputer to scan every latte they sold for the last 2 years. Yeah, just to find the ones where they maybe forgot to charge for oat milk. Because in 2026, that's what's happening. Carriers are actively going back through closed transactions, not by accident, but with these systematic bulk investigations.
Okay, wait, hold on. Systematic. So this isn't just a random adjuster pulling a file from a cabinet.
No, not anymore. That's the big 2026 difference. It's largely automated. They're running algorithms over old payment data to find anything they can claw back. They're looking for patterns.
Okay, so let's walk me through it. How does this actually show up on a provider's desk?
Well, it almost never starts with a bang. It's quiet. Usually a carrier or a third-party auditor. And remember, these auditors often get a cut of what they recover, so they're very motivated.
Right.
They'll review a whole batch of claims. They're not looking at one patient. They're looking at a data set.
They're fishing, casting a wide net.
Exactly. And then the provider gets a letter. And here's the key. It's almost never about a single bill. It's usually a demand letter that covers dozens, maybe even hundreds of claims all at once.
That sounds terrifying. You open an envelope and see a spreadsheet of patients from 2 years ago.
It is, and the language is designed to intimidate. You'll see words like overpayment, recoupment, refund obligation. It all sounds very official, very final.
That sounds like a court order, like you've already lost the fight.
And that's the point. That's what they want you to feel. Notice these letters are often really vague on the legal basis. It might just say overpayment due to audit finding. They don't always spell out the specific reason for every single line item.
Strategic ambiguity.
Precisely. They are counting on the confusion. They know a busy office manager might just go, I don't want trouble, and just cut the check to make it all go away.
So why is this blowing up now in 2026? What shifted?
It's a shift in cost control philosophy. For years, the focus was on stopping money from going out the door. Utilization review, bill review.
Right, perspective.
Exactly. But insurers are under huge pressure to lower costs. And they've realized there's this giant pot of money just sitting there in paid claims that they can tap into if they audit retroactively.
So the new strategy is basically pay first, audit later.
Pay first, audit later is the mantra. It's often cheaper for them to just automate payments, get the money out the door fast, avoid late penalties, and then use AI or bulk audits to claw back a percentage of it later.
That is so cynical, but I guess I get it from a business perspective. So what are they hunting for this year? What's on their checklist?
We're seeing 4 main targets. First, alleged authorization defects. Maybe you had an auth, but it wasn't perfect. The date range was off by a day, or a specific code wasn't on the letter.
Nitpicky stuff.
Very nitpicky. Second is documentation gaps. A missing signature, missing timestamp, technicalities. If they can find a technical reason, they will use it.
Of course, it gives them leverage.
Third, and this one is huge, is retrospective medical necessity reviews. They'll look at a surgery they paid for last year and say, you know what, based on our new internal protocol, we don't think that was necessary anymore.
Even if they didn't object at the time. Even if they paid the bill without a word.
Even then. And fourth, and this is maybe the most frustrating one, coding interpretations that have changed since the payment was made.
Well, how does that work?
So maybe a certain code was fine in 2024, but now in 2026, they've decided to interpret the bundling rules differently, and they're applying that new rule backwards in time.
That feels completely unjust. It's like getting a speeding ticket today for driving you did last year, because they lowered the speed limit yesterday.
That's a perfect analogy. The payment was made based on the rules at the time, but the audit is judging it by new standards. And they hold all the cards, or at least they act like they do.
Okay, so this brings us to the million-dollar question, literally. Do providers just have to pay it back? If I get a letter that says I owe 50 grand, is that it? Game over.
This is probably the most critical thing we'll talk about today, Anique. The answer is usually no. You have to understand the massive difference between a refund demand and a legally enforceable recoupment.
Okay, unpack that. Because they sound the same. They both mean, give us the money.
They sound the same, but legally, they're worlds apart. A refund demand is just a request. It's the carrier saying, we think you owe us this money, please send it. It's an invitation. A legal recoupment is when they actually have the statutory right to take that money, usually by just deducting it from future payments.
So the letter it's a bluff.
In many, many cases, yes, it's a strategic bluff. They're hoping you just assume that because they're a giant insurance carrier, they must be right. They skip the part where they have to prove anything and jump straight to the demand.
Wow, that's a huge realization. They're just banking on us being too busy or too scared to call them on it.
Exactly. And here's the real danger. The second a provider sends that money back voluntarily, they lose almost all of their leverage.
So if you write the check.
If you write the check, you're essentially agreeing with them. You're saying, yes, you're right, that payment was improper.
You've sealed your own fate. You've admitted guilt, basically.
You've waived your right to object. Trying to get that money back after you've already refunded it is, well, it's nearly impossible. There's something called the voluntary payment doctrine. It basically says, if you pay a demand voluntarily, knowing the facts, you can't sue to get it back just because you later realize you didn't actually owe it. I paid because I was scared is not a legal defense.
That is terrifying. So let's talk about the mistakes providers make. When that letter arrives, I assume the first mistake is just panic.
Panic is number one for sure. The office manager sees a demand for, $20,000 and they freak out. They worry about getting blacklisted by the carrier.
So they just pay it to make the problem go away.
They pay it. Or they immediately try to negotiate, like, okay, we'll pay half, which is still admitting you did something wrong. Another huge mistake is timeline ignorance. In workers' comp, almost everything runs on a deadline. There are look-back limits.
Meaning they can't come back like 10 years later and ask for money.
Exactly. Depending on where you are, they might only have 12 months or 24 months to audit a bill. If they send you a demand for a claim that's 3 years old and you pay it, you just donated money you didn't legally owe.
That's tragic. Just throwing money away because you didn't check a calendar.
Another one is failing to check for something called waiver by payment.
Waiver by payment. Okay, what's that in plain English?
It means that when the insurance company sent you that first check, they might have given up their right to object later on.
How so?
Well, think about it. If they had all the information, your report, the bill, the auth, and they chose to pay it, a lot of places say they can't just change their mind 2 years later. By paying, they accepted the bill as valid.
So silence plus payment can equal acceptance.
In many cases, yes. The law doesn't really like it when one side pays a bill, lets the other party spend the money, and then comes back later saying, changed my mind. But providers forget to make that argument all the time.
They just react emotionally instead of strategically.
Exactly.
Can you give us a real-world example, a story to make this stick?
I can. Let's take an anonymous but very typical scenario. A physical therapy clinic. They treat a patient for a pretty serious back injury after surgery. They get authorization for 24 sessions. They do the work, they send the bills, the carrier pays in full. Everything's great.
Okay, sounds like a perfect case. System working.
Until 16 months later, the file's in a box somewhere, the patient is long gone, and suddenly the clinic gets a bulk audit letter. The carrier is demanding repayment for the entire thing, citing lack of medical necessity.
16 months later,
Yeah.
but they paid for it.
Right. They're claiming the notes didn't show enough functional improvement to justify all those visits.
Okay, so what were the actual facts here? Did they have a UR denial at the time?
No, that's the key. No utilization review denial at the time of service. No objection when the original bill was sent. They just pill it. Now, a year and a half later, some auditor says, we don't think it was needed.
So the clinic manager, if they panic, they write a check for thousands of dollars.
Correct. But in this case, the provider didn't panic. They paused, they pulled the file, they challenged the demand. They pointed out, hey, there was no timely UR denial. You issued payment without objection. You can't retrospectively conduct UR a year later.
And what was the outcome?
The carrier's argument it fell apart. They had
Yeah.
no legal leg to stand on because the original payment, combined with their failure to object in time, basically closed the case. The carrier had waived their right to dispute it.
So the facts didn't change at all. The medical notes were the same. The codes were the same. The only thing that changed was the provider's response.
The only variable that changed was the provider's refusal to just accept the demand. If they had written that check, that money would be gone forever. By fighting, they kept every penny.
That's so powerful. It really does sound like a game of chicken. The carrier's just revving their engine, hoping you'll jump out of the way first.
It's a perfect description. And they know that for every one provider who fights back, 10 others will just pay. That's why the strategy is profitable for them. They're playing the odds.
So how do we armor up? What's the strategy for providers listening right now who want to protect themselves? Is it just as simple as don't pay?
It's a bit more nuanced. I mean, don't pay can get you in trouble if the overpayment is legitimate, like a true duplicate payment.
Sure.
But for these subjective audits, it starts with a mindset shift. You have to stop seeing a refund demand as an obligation. You have to treat it as a dispute. It's the beginning of a conversation, not the end of one.
Okay, treat it as a dispute. Got it. What are the tactical steps? A checklist.
Yes, step 1. Verify timelines and authority. Is the audit within the legal look-back period for your state? Does this third-party auditor even have the authority to demand this money?
Just basic due diligence.
Step 2. A deep dive into the authorization and payment history. Did you have auth? Did they pay without any objection? You're looking for the evidence that they accepted liability when they paid.
You're hunting for that waiver by payment moment.
Exactly. Step 3. Preserve your rights immediately. Don't just send an email saying you disagree. You need to file the formal legal paperwork to dispute it. That might be a lien or a request for administrative review. You have to stop their clock.
Make it official.
Make it official. It forces them to engage legally, not just administratively. And step 4, document reliance.
Reliance.
It's a legal concept. You argue that you relied on their payment to run your business, you paid your staff, your rent, you kept the lights on, all believing that transaction was done. Proving that taking the money back now would cause you real financial harm is a very strong defense.
That makes sense. I spent this money because you told me it was mine.
It shifts the burden back onto them to prove why their mistake should hurt you. Right. But the golden rule, if you take away one thing, it's this. Avoid voluntary refunds without a thorough review. Never, ever just write the check because you're scared.
Fear is the enemy, information is the defense. That seems to be the theme here.
It really is. The carriers are playing a volume game. They send out thousands of these letters. If even 20% of providers pay without a fight, the audit is a massive financial win for them. Your job is to not be in that 20%.
So, to just kind of wrap this all up, we're in a world now where paid doesn't actually mean safe.
Correct. Payment is provisional in 2026. It's not final until the look-back period has expired or you've successfully defended it.
And these scary demand letters, They're often just bluffs. They're an opening offer in a negotiation, not a final judgment.
They are an invitation to a dance. You get to decide if you accept and what kind of music you're going to dance to.
And silence or just paying it. That's a losing strategy. It only helps the insurer.
Silence and voluntary refunds only benefit them. There is zero upside for the provider. In fact, if you fight back every single time consistently, you sometimes find you just stop getting audited. You become unprofitable to chase.
Wow.
They'll just move on to the easier target down the street.
The era of set it and forget it billing is officially over.
It is. In 2026, you almost need a revenue defense team just as much as you need a revenue cycle team. You have to guard the back door just as heavily as the front door.
That is a sobering thought, but a really necessary one. Angela, this has been incredibly helpful.
I'm glad. Once you know the rules, it takes away the fear. A demand letter is just a piece of paper until they prove their case. You can breathe, you can review, and you can fight back.
For everyone listening, stay alert, watch that mail, check your dates, and do not give back revenue without a fight.
And check the show notes. We've put some resources there on audit response strategies.
Thanks for listening to Workers Comp Unwrapped. We will catch you on the next deep dive. Stay safe out there. Thanks for listening to Workers Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe and share with fellow doctors. Stay informed and keep making a difference in your patient's care.